The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show. Seeking super smart, super talented superheroes. How to be wow over the world and all around. The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show.
Hello everyone, this is Shantae and welcome to the show where we seek out the super smart, super talented, and basically the superheroes who are taking over the world and making it super wow. Today we are talking with, I'm really excited about this guest. We have a long history together, Randy Schroeder. Let me tell you a little bit about Randy. Randy has become one of the most successful and highly regarded figures in the direct selling industry. And if you know the industry, you know his name. His career has taken him to virtually every corner of the world. The depths and breadths of his experience are beyond compare. But to equate Randy with his business only is to miss basically the entire essence of who Randy is and what he's about. If you ask him, what is most important to him, everyone knows this who knows Randy. Number one in his life is his wife, Tara, and that is followed closely and intertwined with the responsibilities he has as a father, stepfather, and grandparent. Randy believes in being, we're all spiritual beings. He believes that we all have physical bodies here, but in essence, we are to look for a spiritual version of something that resonates with us. Randy is incredibly successful. He's incredibly well-traveled, and he's been one of my favorite people for, well, I think over 10 years now. And without further ado, we're going to bring Randy on the show. Randy, thank you for joining us.
Shantae, thank you so much. What a fantastic introduction. I guess you can encapsulate that all by saying what I really want to be is more happy more of the time. And hopefully in the next few minutes we can tell some people some things that will help them be more happy more of the time too.
I think that's true because, Randy, I don't know if you realize, but it really has been going on over 10 years that we have known each other. And we've known each other both in a working environment, but outside of the working environment. And I think that, so when you say, you're not just business, I know that, for 13 years worth of experience.
Yeah, I remember the time you and I sat together in Istanbul, Turkey, one of the many conversations we've had, but in 10 years, it blows by. So I've known you for a long time. We've both had good times and bad times, and that's what life is along those ways. And so here we are today.
Well, I actually was going to bring up that conversation because that was a wonderful time. But let's go back to how you got started in business, because it didn't start with direct selling and didn't even start at an age that most of us were even thinking about business.
Yes, Shantae, it's interesting that you posed that question. I was actually at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel meeting at a dinner a couple of nights ago, and as I sat there, literally my head spun back. It spun all the way back to 1982, when I was through a chain of remarkable events. At the age of 25 years old, I had an interaction with actually two of Forbes' wealthiest 400 Americans and wound up basically completing a deal where I sold a weight loss company that I had started. And here I am, I'm 25 years old, I weigh about 113 pounds. I know exactly nothing about weight loss, but one of my problems is I think I know more than I do. I'm gradually growing past that. Anyway, I wound up selling a company to a couple of Forbes' wealthiest 400 Americans and basically cemented that transaction at the Beverly Wilshire way back at the age of 1920. At my age of 25 years old in 1982, but honestly, Shantae, that's not when my business started either. Mm-hmm. My business started before that when I asked my mom in about third grade, can I have some Levi's jeans? And she said, how much do they cost? And I told her, and she said, that's too much. I said, I want Converse sneakers. And she said, how much do they cost? I told her, and she said, that's too much. And, a matter of weeks later, I was walking around the neighborhood carrying a little briefcase that had greeting cards and seeds and leather chokers. And I knocked on the door, and when the smiling person answered, I said, hi, I'm Randy Schroeder. I've got a fine selection of everything. Would you like to buy anything? So I suppose it all started that long ago for me.
I love that story.
It's the truth. That's the way it happened.
No, you definitely, found your way into direct selling. And I think like with anything that you did, and I do want to know where this comes, this like tenacity, this, do you go into it just knowing you'll be successful?
Gosh, Shantae, I'm not sure how this happened because I meet so many people who have an attitude of it's not going to work for me. And that doesn't just have to do with direct selling. It's whatever the opportunity is that's presented, whether it be a relationship opportunity or whether it be a financial opportunity. There are so many people who start with this idea of it's not going to work for me. And frankly, I just think that God smiled at me. In later years in my life, I've become very, very conscious of what influences I let in. But in the earliest part of my life, I wasn't being careful about what I would read, what I would watch, what I would listen to. I wasn't making sure I only got good influences. And yet somehow, from the beginning, I believed that if it could be done, that I could do it. And I'm just really grateful for that, because I've never had to struggle through the I can't. I meet so many people, I try to help them now struggle through the I can't, but I'm doing it trying to suppose what it might feel like, because I've never been burdened with that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you definitely, every, opportunity that you've been presented with, you've rose to the rank, number one in the company. Now, with that comes a lot, I mean, you have these teams of people that are looking to you for all kinds of support. They worship you. Tell me both what that is as far as a gift, but also as far as a burden.
Oh gosh, Shante, for a long time, we all start where we start, and we have our esteem, and sometimes it's positive, and sometimes it's negative. And I have to say that for a long time, I really reveled in the recognition and the sense of a power, and probably abused it and didn't make the very most use of that. Today, I think I have a total different responsibility. My responsibility is, I can best describe it this way. Now, spinning the clock ahead to when I'm in the direct selling industry, many, many years ago, I actually authored a training program, and that training program was entitled Recruit, 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 the Only Sure Way to Success. In fact, now a more mature thought tells me that meant I had to recruit today to replace someone I recruited tomorrow. It was an acknowledgement that too many who joined were going to fall out of the bottom of the bucket. Mm-hmm. Today, a more evolved way of thinking, a more mature way of thinking, for me at least, is recruit, train, retain, and then fully transfer the baton of knowledge and leadership. And notice I said fully transfer the baton of knowledge and leadership. The greatest expression of success that I think one can have in this industry is if, when I or a similar leader is not working, nobody knows. In fact, Shante, today I think that the greatest thing would be if nobody anywhere in the world thought of me as the leader, but of whomever they thought of as the leader, if somewhere along the way I was influential in that person developing into leadership, then that would be the greatest expression of success for my current way of thinking.
Now, you have created a number of training programs. You have huge, what they call downlines in, the direct selling network marketing industry. And what I love so much is when you take the stage one, I don't think you know how to take a breath. You're very good at just being able to talk and talk, and you don't even need to take those pauses that we all seem to need, which I love. And it's inspiring. I know you've had a lot of super highs and super lows, and you're always really transparent about those. So maybe talk a little bit about that willingness to be like, look. Well,
I'll talk first about business highs and lows, and then personal highs and lows. And the fact is that while for so much of my life, I measured success in terms of business results, today I don't. Today I measure success, as I told you, I ought to be more happy more of the time. That's how I measure success. Am I more happy or am I not? And if I'm not, then what should I change such that I can be more happy more of the time? But if we look back at business successes, I remember certainly that ability to sell a weight loss company that I had started to two of Forbes' wealthiest 400 Americans at such a young age. The interactions that I had with those people completely changed my vision of what is possible. Completely, totally, and absolutely changed my vision of what is possible. And I've continued since that day. I remembered that long before I was ever taught by someone that I needed to associate with those more successful than me. I learned it myself in that environment, and I've continually since that time made it possible for me to be in association with people whose accomplishments far transcend mine, and that's continued raising the bar of what I think is possible. If I think a couple of the things, okay, that were so fun for me, many years ago I was the top producer, as you've indicated, in a direct selling company, and I'll come around to some of the mistakes I've made. But our company was about to open in Japan, and I was told that the Japanese people didn't really want an American leader, that American leaders were not so well received at that particular point in time. And while I didn't know it was extraordinary at the time, the decision that I made had an extraordinary outcome. I hired a speech coach and literally learned phrase by phrase about a 35-minute presentation in very, very honorific Tokyo businessman's language. and presented an opening speech in front of about 7,000 people that went like this. It was, I remember it so well. Minasan, domo, arigatou gozaimasu. Kono shimatsu mata sugagaku utaru opening前の準備で感じていただいたご親切に対して本当に感謝しております. Well, that went on for 40 minutes, okay? 35 minutes. And at the end of that, I was no longer one of many, but I was one of one in the eyes of many. And that set the stage for one of the greatest business successes ever in my life. It made me who I became in all of Southeast Asia. That was, in fact, that's North Asia. That was an amazing experience for me. I think of that one. Gosh, I think of, it's hard for me when I talk about successes. When I talk about successes, what that tends to do is separate me from others. It's when I talk about mistakes I've made, that tends to bring us together. Mm-hmm. And so if it's okay with you, let me just say that in my career, I have been among the very, very, very most fortunate. I've been taught by some of the very greatest. Believe it or not, I've earned in excess of $32 million in commissions since I've joined this industry. Along the way, I've learned the difference in making money and having money. And further along the way, I've learned the difference in having money and creating wealth. And today I have gained the freedom and flexibility that everybody dreams of when they first said yes to the industry. And so I consider myself to be among the very most fortunate, the very most blessed. There's not a happier person in the industry than me. There's not a greater advocate for the entire industry than I am. Now, that said, can I shift gears and talk about some of the mistakes? Because that tends to bring the common ground together more.
Yes, of course. What would you say? Let's talk about a time that you felt you failed and what you learned from that.
I'll share with you the 4 biggest mistakes I've made in the industry. Mm-hmm. And when I share these mistakes, I do it first because it doesn't hurt me to remember. Because when I remember those mistakes, then that tends to put a little more separation between me and making that same mistake again. And second, because I would hope that maybe just one person who hears this material says, wow, I could see myself making that same mistake, and let me pull back away from the line a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the first mistake, I was brought into the industry back in 1990, and candidly, I became a new skin distributor first, and this is the truth. The truth is, I should still be a new skin distributor. I came into the business, I sponsored people, and I told them that if they joined me, we could develop permanent income. And that was at a time when Nu Skin was doing about $250 million in sales. Now they're doing well over $1 billion. Obviously, Nu Skin was fine. But 19 months into it, the company made some decisions I didn't agree with. And, of course, in my overinflated ego, I thought that I knew more than they knew. And I left. Well, I promised people who joined me that we'd have permanent income. When I left, I didn't just leave gracefully, but I left and I took people with me. And if I sponsored you and you didn't come with me, I called the people in your group and tore it apart. Now, that was wrong. It's not like maybe it was wrong. That was wrong. Permanent income requires permanent commitment. I'm a slow learner. And a decade later, I did the same thing again. A decade later, I was the #1 earner at a direct selling company. That company, no one had ever been treated better than I by that company. It was called Direct Sell Showcase International. In 10 years, they paid me $17 million in commissions. The year before I left, over $3 million. They made a decision I didn't like, and I left. And all those people that I promised, we do this together, we'll have permanent income, I invalidated that promise by taking apart what I'd helped them build. It's not like maybe that was wrong. It was wrong. The first big mistake is recognizing that to the extent that the company I'm involved with is paying commissions and sending products that have value that are arriving on time, then my job and obligation is to build where I am and not to believe that by going someplace else I'll have a greater outcome. Permanent income requires permanent commitment. That was a big mistake. That was a big mistake, one that I will not repeat. Write it down so you heard it here first. So long as the company I'm involved with, which is Monavie, is shipping products and paying commission checks, you can know that that's where I will be. 100% chance. Because I finally learned that lesson. It took me a long time to get there, but I've learned the lesson. Permanent income takes permanent commitment. If my business is not growing, so long as the company is shipping products and paying commissions, the problem is not the company, the problem is me. And that's the good news, because I can't change the company, but I can change me. Mm-hmm. Second mistake. When I was brought into the business, a person on stage talked about this big income that he was earning, the big income, and said some things that were not entirely true. Said he was earning $37,000 per month after 7 months. Well, per month, that implies month after month after month. It doesn't imply one special bonus 1 month, right? Mm-hmm. And what he said was technically true. He'd been a distributor for 7 months, but it was a distributorship his mother had given him that was 7 years old. So I joined the business based on something that was a little less than true, a lot less. And I got in trouble as a result. When I resigned the job, I went full-time. Again, this monster ego of mine. Somebody else could make $37,000 per month after 7 months, and I can make 50 after 6. That's one of my problems. And so I quit a job, and I went full-time. And not too long later, I was in real trouble because the truth is that I wasn't making $30,000 a month after 6 months. I was making $300 a month after 3 months and $400 after 5. But, a person introduced me on stage and made a reference about my income that was incorrect. I didn't say that which was untrue, but I didn't stop that which was untrue from being repeated. I didn't say, no, stop, that's not true. I'm not making $10,000 per month. I made $10,000 in a month. I didn't stop the lie, and by not stopping it, I became complicit in it. And I don't know what happens to anybody else, but here's what I know about me. The first time something is said, or if I say something that is not true, it's glaring and it's obvious. But if I let that lack of truth go on, I gradually become anesthetized to the truth by that which is false. And before long, it wasn't other people making false income statements about me, it was me making them. And then other people joined the business based upon a lie just like I had. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a huge mistake. I'll never make that mistake again, but I made it once, right? I made it once, and it went on for a period of time. Those are 2 big mistakes. And the third mistake, this is the most personal one of them all. You indicated how important is my wife Tara and my marriage, and critically important to me. But you know what? Tara's my second wife. I should still be married to my first. She was also wonderful. I made promises to her that I didn't keep. With the authority that comes from the stage, the power of the stage is incredible. And I literally, for years, abused that power. I was able to pick a pretty girl out of the audience and wind up in the bar and then someplace else with her, for a long time. And I didn't honor the commitment that I'd made in marriage. And I abused the power and the authority that came from the stage. I did that for quite some period of time. Huge mistake. And by the way, Shante, none of these mistakes I'm describing to you are mistakes that are unique to me. I've seen them play their way out again and again and again and over and over and over. And so I think back to the big mistakes. Permanent income requires permanent commitment. If you're involved in direct selling and the company is paying commissions on time and sending checks, stay home. The problem's not the company, the problem's you. I say that to me, and I let other people listen. The truth is the truth is the truth, and it's good enough, and it need not be added to or detracted from. The truth is sacred, it's inviolable. It took me a long time to figure that out. With the stage comes power. With the stage comes power. And one must be so very, very careful to not abuse that power as we grow and learn in the business. Those are big errors. Permanent income requires permanent commitment. The truth is the truth. It's good enough. With the stage comes power. Those are all lessons that have since turned to me into further successes, but each one was an incredible, humiliating defeat at the time that it became evident to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, all of those things, like you said, they're not unique to you. And they're hard things. They're hard things to learn, and then hard things to admit to. I think a lot of times, we all have things that we learn, but then we like to keep quiet about it. We don't like to go back, and we certainly don't like to use the platforms we have in front of us to then be vocal about them and share them with such transparency. Why for you? And I know that you have another platform. I know you're writing a book right now. That why is it important to you to share these things and be vocal?
It takes me to the next part of my life. And for years and years and years, I thought it was a party, and I drank like so many other people do. Some people can successfully use alcohol, and I never really could. I didn't realize that I couldn't. After years of abusing alcohol, then I started abusing other substances, principally cocaine, and of course, Chantal, you've known me for a long time, so I rode that horse to the very, 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 very end. Ultimately, in a very short number of weeks, I was arrested 3 times for cocaine possession, and ultimately was convicted of felonies. And by the way, God's been very kind to me. Today, those felonies have been expunged and removed from my record, and I no longer carry that burden around, but I carry very, very fresh in my mind what it was like to be arrested for cocaine possession, to be so under control of that drug that I bailed myself out with my credit card and went right back to the neighborhood and continued that run, only to get arrested a second time, bail myself out and get arrested a third time. it's very clear to me, and I can call to mind this instant what that amount of hopelessness and helplessness and powerlessness felt like. And today I'm not burdened with that. But I guess my response to you when you say, why do I choose to share so openly of my experiences? Because it's not that who's going to benefit from them except me. And if I'm the only one who benefits from them, it's not that about the most selfish thing you can imagine. You know, I have been, for whatever reason, God has chosen to be so kind to me. I live a life today that is an absolute fairy tale. And when I go back to my whole life experience and I consider where I began, I consider the graphic nature of some of my errors, both in business and in life, and then I contemplate where I am today, I say, how do you get from there to here? It seems impossible, but all things are possible with God. And so therefore, just because he's been so very kind to me, I choose to share openly with my experiences in the hope that somebody else can learn something from them without having maybe to take it quite as far as I have in those various ways.
Yes, that would be... You are an extremist. That's
That's the truth. That's the truth.
The most lovely. Let's talk about happiness, because you have experienced what so many of us are driving for as far as what we think happiness is. And you've experienced, you know, the fancy cars, the big houses, the lots of stuff. You've also experienced, you know, the absolute humility of what you were just, you know, expressing, where you didn't have access to any of those things by court order, and, you know, your family almost being, you know, taken away from you. I mean, you've experienced having a lot and then having a little, having a lot. And now I know that it comes from things like your family and your spirituality. So what was that transition? What was it that you're like, it's not stuff?
You know, I do remember so well. I mean, I'm here at my home in a little community called Rancho Santa Fe, California, and it's just a little enclave of wealth. It's kind of an amazing thing. Once again, how do I get here? Who knows? But I remember a time, a number of years back, when you could walk out into my garage and find there a Lamborghini and 2 Ferraris and 2 Porsches and 5 Harley Davidsons. And what I wanted was more. I just wanted more. Why? Because the next thing was just the next bit of medicine. You know, I didn't want you to know me, but I wanted you to see what I had. It was so important to me to have one of those things to pull up to valet and have people say, ooh, look what Randy's got. Randy must be all of that. For me, it was a long, long, long period of self-discovery. And to be more happy means, like today, if I want a Lamborghini, I can have one. But thank God I don't have to have one to be okay being me. You know, finally the day came when I realized that I have got to get happy with me. It's not about externals. It's not about what I have. It's about who I am. It's not about assets. It's about what Martin Luther King said. It's about the content of my character. And so one day what I realized is the single greatest thing that I at least can do to gain happiness, in fact, I should break that down. The single greatest things are, number one, if I can identify a character weakness, I can move it to a point of neutrality, and then ultimately turn a one-time character weakness into a character strength. That is esteeming. And when self-esteem grows, I am more happy. That's very, very simple. So once again, if I can identify a character weakness or a character flaw, if I can over a period of time work to refine that character flaw to a point of neutrality, and then if ultimately it can be refined further to a point of strength, that is esteeming. And if one's self-esteem is growing, my own experiences, we become more happy. Second, it's impossible for me to separate the spiritual component of life. And I think back, Augustine of Hippo in the year 306 wrote in a book called The City of God, he said, God made man for himself, and man will be restless until he rests in God. Now, I've come to realize over all of these years that I can only experience life my way. I only know what it feels like to be me. I don't know what it feels like to be you, Shantae. I don't know what it feels like to be anybody else. But here's what I know about being me. It doesn't matter how much praise I get. It doesn't matter the size of my bank account. It doesn't matter how much public accolade. It doesn't matter how beautiful my children or grandchildren or my wife. None of those things fill the bill if I lack a connection with God the way that I understand God. I am restless. And so today, for me, being more happy more of the time means being in constant pursuit of identifying new additional character issues, because only as I resolve one am I able to see with clarity the next problem that needs to be resolved. Clearly, it has become evident to me that it's a lifelong pursuit, that it will never, there's no such thing as arriving in this life. And so it's about identifying areas where improvement is needed and then working towards that improvement. And it is about acknowledging that left to my own devices, there's enough history to suggest this, left to my own devices, I will destroy my life today. And so with that simple acknowledgement, saying, God, you take charge, not me. and then seeking to grow closer to God the way that I understand God, and granting to every other person the opportunity to grow closer to that God of his or her own understanding without imposing my version. Those are the things that wind up making me more happy more of the time. And then a positive side effect is I'm living proof that money, financial assets and resources cannot create happiness. But financial pressure can contribute to a lack thereof. Mm-hmm. So I'm certainly not an advocate of being broke. I continue to pursue financial things, and today is the very best moment in my life financially, and I'm working hard to make my next moment a better one. So it's not like I've abandoned the pursuit of things, but today I utilize those things differently. I realize that I have things to share them with others.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what the part that I love about you most is you don't take anything personally. Like, you don't attach it to yourself as, this is me, this defines me. And I do know that there are levels of luxury that are exciting and fun. I mean, just even talking about our dinner together, overseas. I mean, we had a blast, and so experiencing those things, can become, that's what it is, and it's an experience.
Shante, once we finally get it right in this industry, sometimes. I tend to be, as we described, I am an extremist, and I have to sometimes back myself away from the amount of work that I do and make sure that I'm keeping the proper balance in my life. Mm-hmm. But really and truly, and no kidding, my life looks very much like a paid vacation. Think about it for a second. I fly around the world. I go to the most fantastic locations in the world to meet people who, for whatever reason, care about me. They love me. They respect me. They greet me at the airport and treat me like royalty. I stay in the finest hotels and resorts. I fly around the world and get treated like royalty, and I get paid for it. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. Literally, it looks, feels, and acts like a paid vacation. Mm-hmm. When people contemplate what are the possibilities that come from true success in the direct selling industry, I think that most people can't even grasp the vision of what it can be. But now step it aside from that. Step it way back, because I choose to be so fully disclosing in all of my life's experiences. Yeah, it's fun to get picked up at the airport and treated like royalty, and it's fun to stay in the Four Seasons or the Peninsula or whatever it is. What's more fun is having someone come up to me and slip a note in my hand at the end of the presentation that says, my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, or I found our way into the rooms of recovery because you were willing to be honest about your life experience. What's more fun is when someone comes up and hands me a note with tears in their eyes and says, I didn't think our marriage was going to make it. I'm still not sure it will, but we're trying instead of abandoning it. We were influenced by something you said. What's more fun are those kinds of things. Those are the things that make my heart swell. Staying at the Four Seasons is not an emotional experience for me, but having someone indicate that their life is in some way impacted by something that I've been a part of, that is an emotional experience for me.
And I think, with those platforms and being in front of so many people, there are definitely more opportunities that you don't even know that you've had the impact. Let's talk about, you have children and stepchildren, and you have loads of grandchildren now.
Thank you.
All adorable, all simply beautiful. Now, if you were standing in front of them, if that was your audience and you were on a stage or some sort of platform, what would be your one piece of advice for them for a healthy life?
My advice for them is generally the same advice that I've shared here, and that is, number one, minus a contact with God. However you grow to know and understand God, life will be hollow. And so set aside when those moments come when you feel like you're being pushed in some direction and it doesn't feel natural to you, try to set that aside and recognize that there is a God who knows and loves you, and once you come to know and love that God, that your life will take on a better flavor over time. And that's the number one thing. The number two thing is to recognize that the single greatest obligation we have is fidelity in a relationship once we enter a relationship. And the third thing is to recognize that if we are able to confront ourselves and are willing to be confronted by others to identify the inevitable areas of character flaw, we can work to resolve them and we can become happier. My message is the same to my grandchild as it is to my audience, because that's the message. I've become happy. And it's the same things. I don't have a special message for somebody else that I care for more. My message is the same. It's a simple message, and it's one that worked for me.
Now, how do you, it must be hard if you see your children making mistakes, maybe if they're the same tone as what you've experienced in life. How do you handle that?
Oh gosh, fortunately, none of my kids have made any place close to the same mistakes as me. I think they all look at me as such a graphic example. I'm really lucky, Shantae. You know my kids, and the fact is that none of them are perfect, but they're all pretty darn good kids. At least to the best of my knowledge. The place where I'm more able to directly impact people who are making difficult choices in life is in the rooms of recovery. I had a young guy sitting here in my home a week ago today that 5 months earlier had a needle in his arm shooting heroin. And it's not me that got him sober, far from that, but I've been a part of his recovery. And man, I can't tell you, that's the stuff that matters. That matters. Now, happily, none of my kids have made those kinds of graphic errors, so I've not had to deal with that. When the opportunity arises, as it ever does, to help one of them in that kind of a situation, a child or a grandchild, I'll treat them and interact with them the very same way as I did with this young man named Alec, who was 22 years old. His father dumped him off at my house a little while back and said, "Randy, can you please help?" I said, "I don't know, but I'll try." And it's not me that's helping, it's the program of recovery and God, but I've been kind of a tour guide for him. So once again, Shantae, the message is the same. The message is the same. It matters not to me who the relationship is, because as strange as this sounds, you know how much I love my grandkids. I don't love them any more than I love that 22-year-old kid sitting here in my house I didn't know 9 days ago or 6 months ago.
Mm. Now, before we wrap, I do want to talk about you have a book that you are writing right now in, even though you're very busy schedule. And, the little bit that we've talked about it, I mean, a lot of people know you as this incredible, impactful trainer. And, they know that you have very rich life experiences. But I think this book is going to be it's really going to really tell a story. The stories of your life. It
will, Shantae. Yeah. Let me tell you, it will address a few things. And for those who are involved in direct selling, it will specifically talk about the 4 skills that are required to become successful in the business. And it will also talk about this simple thought that if we want to build a big business that takes on a life of its own and sustains itself, we have to create value in people's lives, separate and distinct from the size of their checks. Because we have to recognize that most who join us aren't going to make any money for a little while. They're going to have to learn, grow, develop, and become. They'll have to have a period of self-transformation before they get the key in the lock of success. So until unless we create a community, an environment where they're given that chance to grow, until we're adding value to people's lives, separate from their check, we can fully count on building a business of replacement as opposed to a business of addition. And so there'll be an ample description of that. And then there'll be a full recounting of, here today I find myself 56 years old, and it'll be a full recounting of the life's experiences that I have had that have led me to what in most people's view is almost unimaginable success. And in my own view, it is unimaginable success. And as it should not be a surprise for our conversation today, what is the name of the book? It is More Happy, More of the Time. Because that's what I want to be. And if I can somehow be just a tiny little influencer in the lives of others that cause them to make a few different choices that enable them to become more happy more of the time, a little bit sooner in life than I did, then that'll be a win.
And that's true. That's what we're all looking for. I mean, my last interview, we were talking about, what people are actually after. And they say it's, more money or more this. But really, if you just keep digging, it's more happiness.
Ultimately, we want to be more happy. And at the end of the day, happiness is about relationship, period. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought happiness was about money. And then I worked with some people in the Philippines who had absolutely no money. And I saw happy people. It's not about money. Now, once again, I'm not an advocate of being broke. Far, far, far from that. But happiness ultimately is about relationship, period. And if happiness is about relationship, then we've got to learn a way to so live our lives so we can be in more positive association with more people more at a time. If that happens, then we've laid a foundation upon which we can build a life that is more happy more at a time.
Mm-hmm. All right, so 2 final questions, and I'll put them together. 1 is, what's next for you? And 2, your legacy. What do you hope to be remembered for? If you haven't already said, maybe reiterate.
I guess from a direct selling standpoint, what I would like to be, when people think of my name, I would hope that they say, wow, Randy is one who made the transition and stopped talking just about recruiting, but he talked about what is required to hold together a community for a long enough period of time for the participants in that community to learn, grow, develop, and become that which they must to ultimately get the key in the lock of success. He acknowledged the fact that most who joined are not going to make money right away, and helped create a format where they could become that which they must. I would love to think that when people contemplate who I am in direct selling, that they would say, wow, here was a guy who was willing to tell the truth. You know, as uncomfortable as some of those bits of truth might have been, this guy was willing to tell the truth. And based on that set of facts, I can make a legitimate decision. Should I enter the business or should I not? Should I stay in it? Should I not? I'm hoping that when people think of me, that a couple of thoughts just pop into their mind. I'm hoping they hear daily disciplines done daily build character. I mean, when somebody says Randy Schroeder, daily disciplines done daily build character. I hope the next thing they hear is permanent income requires permanent commitment. I hope the next thing they hear is God made man for himself, and man will be restless until he rests in God. I hope they hear Randy Schroeder, fidelity in marriage. I hope, Shante, those are the things. If those things happen, then my time in this industry was well spent. And along the way, a whole bunch of people will make a bunch of money. That's already been proven. You know, that part has already been proven. We want to go quite a bit beyond that. And if you take it away, the business part of my life is by far the least important part of my life today. It's just not what matters to me the most. I'm happy, I'm successful financially, and that success is like this year is the best financial year of my life. I mean, this year, so far, the first 10 months of 2013 are the best 10 months of my life financially. And so it's not that having a smaller focus on financial returns has created a smaller outcome. The opposite is true. This is the best financial year of my life, though I'm focusing on finances far less than I ever have. Something about the cosmos in there. Probably a lesson to be learned there someplace for others as well.
Love it. Now, so what we'll do is, you don't have a launch date for your book yet, right?
End of March.
End of March, okay. You too. So what we're going to do for our listeners is we're just going to keep tabs on Randy. We will put all the details on, how to find Randy, his website, where to find out details so that you can follow and be ready for that launch.
Beautiful.
Randy, is there anything else that you would like to share? Or do you feel like we've covered kind of the gamut here?
All I would tell people is this. No matter who you are, where you've been, good, bad, or indifferent, whether or not you believe it, I believe you can really succeed. I don't just mean in direct selling or whatever you do. I believe you can really succeed in life because that's been my experience. Whether or not you believe it, I believe that you can have friends, not just acquaintances. I believe that you can have more money than you need. I believe that you can have a rich and rewarding marriage. I believe that you can be more happy more of the time. I believe that you can have an actual relationship with God, whether you understand God. I believe you can have it all. And there's no reason to settle for less than that. Those are my final thoughts.
Love it. Thank you so much. Now, to our listeners, thank you for listening. Randy, thank you for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. For our listeners, make sure that, if you really like what you've heard today, to either, go to iTunes, rate it, review it, show Randy some online love, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave a comment at topknotcreative.com. We accept all of that, and we will send back to you a lot of virtual love and high five. And until next time, get out there, build something beautiful, and take care.